Hey everyone, new project today coming up. It's going to be a bed frame, queen size bed frame made out of birch. And I did one in the past and you've seen that one already. This is going to be different. Similar design, but because I'm using dimensional lumber that's rough cut and very similar sizes and thicknesses, it's going to be a lot easier, I hope. So this is what we're going to be starting with. I think you can see it in the background there. That will end up being a queen size bed frame. So no point waiting around, let's get started. I've got everything laid out for this bed that I'm making, and it's all sitting here. So I've got these 6-inch pieces and 8-inch pieces. Because my planer only goes 13, I can't laminate those two together. It won't go through. So I'm going to rip these in half and then glue it together like that to get different, to get a width wide enough and not too wide to go through the planer. So you can see I've marked that with a 2, and down at this end I'll mark it 2A, 2B, so I'll know that it's in the order. Because I had these laid out flat in the order I want it to go in for the headboard. so I got the long pieces all jointed down on one side, so they are nice and square and straight. So what I'm doing now is I got to get my table saw set up for those long pieces. That fence I have with a piece of wood on it's just not going to cut it. I do have a piece of aluminum square tubing which I'm going to set up now, and it's a bit of a pain, but it definitely works better. So I'm going to work on my footboard now. The standard width for my rails and my footboard was going to be 5.5 inches, but because I need a support that goes down the middle of the bed to support the center part, I needed to make the footboard just about 1.5 inches longer. So I got to go to about 7 inches. So I'm going to just use a couple of pieces here. I'm going to rip those down to about 1 3/4 inches wide and glue them onto the bottom of that footboard, and it should look pretty good. I mean, I could take another strip, plane it down to 1 inch, and then rip that to 1 3/4 or whatever. But waste not, want not. And I have these pieces that are basically just going to be firewood probably, so I'm going to just rip them down and use those. So my current dilemma is this. I need 3/4 and 3/4. I'm cutting out the centerpiece. And I want to leave 3/4 of an inch on this side. So that means that my blade height has to go from here to here, which is 3 3/4, because it's a 4.5. The only problem is my blade only goes up to 3.5. So it's going to leave a little 1/4 inch notch in there. So I think I'm just going to do it this way anyways, and then chisel out this little section afterwards. And that's what I'm looking at. So this is going to actually be 2 legs, so I'm going to cut it in half, and it'll make that easier, make this part easier to get out. Okay, well, this is what we got. Okay, not bad. Really good. Not so bad. Now all I can do is get rid of this inside of here. Easy with a chisel. Okay, good. Just gluing up the footboard for that extra little bit for the center support. Okay, glue it up. One piece. That's all I'm doing for now. Should be good. So this is the layout for the headboard. You can see the numbers on the left. That's where I originally had them before I ripped the 1x8s into 1x4s. So I redid it, and they're all lettered now from top to bottom. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be gluing here, and then here, and this will be one piece. I'm going to laminate it, no laminate in between. So that way I can plane all of these individually and separately. And then when they're all done, glue them all together. Okay, so layering glue. Might have been a bad idea. I think I'm going to separate these. I'm just not going to get it to work, so it shouldn't be a big deal. It's just going to be too much, I think.
You didn't get a sunflower festival, they serve spits? Yeah, absolutely.
Good enough. So I think that's going to do. It's hard when you have rough cut boards because these are kind of warped like this, those are warped like that. It's tough to get everything square, but there's enough meat here that I'll be able to plane it down to a good thickness. That should work. Okay, gonna plane the footboard and the boards that I have for the headboard. So that's where we're at. So I'm just going to joint these edges to make sure they're, when I glue them together, there's not any warps or any sort of warbles in there. And I should hope they keep them nice and straight. Okay, it turned out pretty good, so I'm going to start the glue up in a few minutes. Okay, ready for the glue up. I'm just going to do three of the pieces together right now at once. That way I can kind of keep them nice and tight and kind of keep better track of them. I use my table saw for a completely flat surface. I can only do 3 at a time. 4 is too wide to fit on there, so that's how I'm going to do it. And hopefully it'll work out because the boards are a little bit warped. Not really bad, but hopefully it'll straighten out and flatten out with the glue up. Okay, glue up accomplished. So one thing I did different that you haven't seen me do before is underneath here, I have put just some tape, a regular just packing tape. What that does is that keeps that glue from touching the clamp, rusting out and leaving a rust stain where the glue joints are. I did the same thing. I put packing tape on the bottom of these pieces for the same reason. This doesn't stick to that wood and maybe tear out chunks of that. So that's what I did all the way along there. And also, a new thing I've done is I put plastic underneath instead of the paper. The paper worked okay, but the problem was the glue's still wet and watery. So the water, that glue, wet glue would soak through that paper, get the top of the table saw, and then still rust it. So this is what we've got. And it should be, I think, pretty good. And then just on the far end, I'll have to just glue one more piece on there, but it'll be a lot easier to do just on one than trying to do anything else with it. So got a couple of gaps here I'm not terribly thrilled with, like that there, that or lips I should say, there's a lip right there, but it's good everywhere else along here. So didn't quite expect that to go perfect because it never does when you're doing these glue ups. I don't have any other way to really do this. So that's why I'm doing it this way. Works out in the past. I mean, I think it'll work fine. All right, glue is set, and just gonna take the clamps on and hopefully it looks good and is at least fairly level. So my hope is it doesn't do this or this. And if it does, not a whole lot. Just a tiny bit. That's okay actually, I don't mind that. Could be a whole lot worse. A couple of little edges like this here. That's okay, sand that down. So now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add that last piece on here, and that'll be the whole kind of headboard piece. So this is one of the problems I kind of run into all the time, and I've never really ever figured a way to get it, to solve it. And that's it right there, that gap. It's touching at that end, touching at that end, but right in the middle there's that nice gap. Drives me nuts, but I mean that's the way it goes. So I know that if I clamp it down, this top piece will bend into there. So not ideal, but again, I don't really have any answers to do that or to get those edges completely straight. I have in the past a couple of times used a really long straight edge and bolted onto the table saw and done that, but even that doesn't seem to work a lot of the time. But that's why it's average dad and not superstar $100,000 wood shop. The result will be the same at the end, I hope. Ah! That's what I thought might happen. So I'm gonna have to do something different and quickly because this is curing. Ah! No need to put a clamp here. That bow is like this, so the pressure when you put it in the middle is like this is tight. I can see it, so that'll be all right. There's a couple little gaps there, but it'll hold. Let that cure. See, that's the only thing that I really have. There's that one little gap, but I could fill that in. It'll look good. You'll never even know. Okay, I let that glue set overnight and taking the clamps off now. So you can see it's a little bit not quite flat, but I think that'll actually come out pretty good in the once it's mounted into the posts. So it'll be good. That was I made this type of bed before and it was about the same, and it straightened out really well. So I'm not too concerned about that. Okay, I'm going to be working on the legs for the footboard. What I've got going on is this stupid thing here. So you can see that in the middle, because my saw wouldn't go high enough on this edge and this edge to get that. I had to kind of cut it out and break it out. So I got to get that out of there to make that piece fit properly. So what I'm going to do is I've set the blade up like that. I'm going to run this through like this. And that's hopefully going to just take out the very middle piece. And then I can sand from the sides, and there shouldn't be much left there to sand. I tried a chisel and a bunch of different things to get this out. It was just a pain. It was going to be forever. So we're going to try this and see what happens. So that looked pretty good. That actually worked not too bad. It's hard to see, but definitely made it better. So I just got to finish that off by hand now. Finish these off by hand, which won't be, it'll be a lot easier than trying to get the whole big piece and a nice sharp corner in there, which is virtually impossible. Sanding worked out good for those corner pieces, so I'm just cutting the legs now to length, and I'll finish off these pieces. I'll explain as I go. Obviously the saw isn't square. Never is, ever. I don't know. And square. Much better on that one. Nothing a bit of sanding won't fix. Okay, gonna be hard to believe, but I messed up, and pretty good too. This isn't just a simple made cut in the wrong spot. I completely messed up the footboard dimensions, and I'll show you why. So I was looking at that. This is my finished footboard. It sits up like this. That's as high as the footboard's gonna be. Now this is for a queen size bed. It didn't look right to me. So I re-looked and rechecked my measurements. This is the diagram, or the drawing I made. So this here 5.5 inches is the distance between that little bar at the bottom of the sideboard up to there. That is essentially the size of the box spring. So the whole entire mattress will sit above this edge. So that means that mattress is going to flop around, you know, off the end. It's not going to be good. You're going to see the whole end of the mattress. Now, what I'm going to do now, and I've measured now, I'm going to make this piece, instead of 11.5 inches long, I'm going to make it 18 inches long. So that's going to be another 7 inches above this, which will cover a 5-inch box spring and a 10-inch mattress. So it's going to be 21 inches total from this piece to the top of the mattress, but only 18 inches to the top of the footboard, which will hold the mattress in place. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, I don't know. I do know how it happened. I built a different bed frame for a twin bed. Twin beds generally don't have the box springs with them. And that 5.5 inch footboard would fit perfect with a 6-inch twin bed frame. Queen beds have a box spring, so do the kings. So anyways, plans will be modified, new footboard coming up, and it's going to be a different design for sure. So this will be the new footboard piece here. You can see quite a bit wider than the original one. And that's basically the original piece that I had, which was this one here. And I had these little pieces in between to make it wide enough. And then the second piece, because I didn't like the way this one worked, but they're all laminated together now. So it's one piece, and that'll be the new footboard. And those are my new foot legs. So instead of being 11.5, they'll end up being 19 inches long. So that's going to be much better and work better. I'm going to set up to sand the headboard and the footboard. I just want to get them rough, so I'll know what the thickness, pretty much final thickness will be, so that I can slot the legs for the to fit the headboard and footboard in there. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with a belt sander, because there are some pretty ugly, not ugly, but some bigger patches that are, you know, warped a little bit, and then some of the glue. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to get the headboard and footboard to their final dimensions and sand it down to their final grit, which will probably be 220. That way I will know exactly how big the slots are going to need to be in my post for my headboard and footboard. That's pretty much, that's actually amazingly enough bang on. So that's completely square. So I'm gonna just set up to cut these edges off and sand it all down. Okay, all the dimensional cuts for the headboard and footboard are done. It's just the painful part of sanding. I'm gonna start that right away. Normally I would be doing it outside, but it's about 30 degrees outside and I don't like sanding in the sun. Just not my thing, so I'm gonna be doing it here. It sucks, but oh well. This side is the back side, so I'm not worried too much about getting it really good. I'm just getting it to 120. There's still going to be some scratches in there from the belt sand. I'm not worried about that because you're never going to see that side. Don't want to leave it really ugly, but just buff it up and clean it up. Okay, I got my footboard sanded down to the final thickness, so I'm gonna run the slots or make the slots into the legs for the feet for the footboard. So what I've got, the table saw is all set up there. So that's a 3/4 inch gap. Blade height is 1 1/4. So I've got these marked out. Like what I want on the outside, which legs, which. Okay, this last little bit, because this isn't exactly a perfect thickness on the footboard, I'm just gonna just measure it and just go by hand and by feel and by look. So that's really, really close. I'm gonna just do a hair more, just so it's kind of loose in there, but not like so it's snug. So that fits perfect. I'll get the other leg done now. That one might have been a bit loose, but it'll be fine. It's not as snug as this one here. Alright, that's done. Looks pretty good. I think they'll work out fine. They're just snug enough that they're going to fit in there, so that'll be really good, I think. So those are my headboard legs, footboard legs So what I've got to do now, you can see how the headboards are actually slide down and then hold it in place on each side. Same with the footboard. So I've got these pieces here that I'm going to plane down. I've already cut them to the a little higher than this. This is that groove's 1 1/4 inches deep. So this is just over 1 1/4, about 1 3/8. So now it's got to plane it down each one of these so they fit inside of here. What'll happen when it fits inside of there and it's glued in place, the headboard will just go down to this part and that'll be a stopper for it. And that's what I'm going to be doing all the way across with all 4 of those. Okay, well those worked out okay, but of course I forgot that the headboard is a little bit thinner than the footboard, so I kind of planed them all down together, got them to kind of what I thought was going to be the thin thickness, which I was going by the headboard, the thinner one. So I made, this one's going to be a little bit sloppier, but it won't matter. I'll fill it all in and plane it all out, sand it, and you won't even know. So anyway, going to get those in place and glued up. So blocks are cut, just going to glue them in place. I'm actually going to not just use regular glue, I'm going to use the glue mixed with the sawdust because it's going to, I left a little bit thicker on there so that when it's all dried, I'll plane it off, just plane it, sand it, and I won't have to mess around with it after. So that's what, that's step I'm at now. So that's it. When that's cured, I will come back and I'll probably plane these down because they're already very close. Plane them down. I don't want to get sand off all that glue, and that should be good.